There's nothing quite like the sound of someone banging on your cabin door at 10 Hazuran at night. Unless it's the sound of that same someone threatening you with fake security officers while you're just trying to enjoy grilled trout and a cold beer with your wife. I mean, I knew weird things happened in the mountains, but I hadn't expected HOA trouble in the middle of nowhere. But you know how it goes, some folks just can't help themselves. We were about 30 miles off the highway, deep in a clearing most people would never find unless their GPS glitched or they were running from something themselves. The only company we usually got out there were deer, the odd black bear, or the occasional hiker who'd wandered too far. So when I opened that door and saw Karen, clipboard in one hand, two knockoff security guards flanking her looking like rejects from a mall cop convention, demanding to inspect my property under the authority of an HOA that didn't even exist out here, well, I knew I was in for a wild ride. And I'll tell you, Karen had absolutely no clue who she was dealing with. Because my wife, Marcy, doesn't get rattled by much, she just stepped forward, cool as an Alaskan pond, and flipped open her U.S. Marshal's badge. She told them to step back unless they wanted to spend the night explaining their choices to a federal judge. I swear you could see the blood drain from their faces, like watching ghosts realize they've been haunting the wrong house. But the crazy part, that was just the opening act. 3 days before that, things were peaceful. I'd wrapped up my last Zoom meeting of the week, shut my laptop, high-fived the air for the heck of it, and promised Marcy a weekend with 0 screens, just fishing firewood, and the old family cabin in Colorado's San Juan Mountains. That place is a little rough around the edges. Crooked floors, an outhouse that howls when the wind kicks up, but it's ours. We loaded up the truck, tossed the dog in the back, and drove until the gas stations disappeared, then a little further for good measure. The first night we settled in with a couple cold beers, that perfect mountain chill in the air. Marcy had her jeans and old hoodie on, hair up, smiling like someone who hadn't spent the last year chasing fugitives for a living. To strangers, she's the type you want as a neighbor. To the wrong person, she's the last badge you ever see. I've always said she's got 2 settings, sweet as pie and full federal thunderstorm, and I love her for both. It was halfway through a dumb story about our first road trip together when we heard it gravel crunching. Not a car, but a golf cart, barreling up our private path, completely ignoring the no trespassing signs we'd posted every 20 feet. That's when Karen arrived, wedge sandals, khaki slacks, sun visor, and that clipboard sunglasses perched on her head like she was holding court at the Ritz. She didn't even knock, just barged up the porch like she owned the oxygen. "Hello," she said, like she was expecting applause. "I'm Karen Milford, community coordinator for the Ridge Pines HOA. She handed me a flyer, said our cabin was now under her jurisdiction, and that we'd soon be receiving a welcome packet and an invoice for, get this, violation of multiple codes. I blinked and actually laughed. Ma'am, this is private land outside any HOA, and we intend to keep it that way." She frowned like I'd just insulted her ancestors. "We recently expanded our perimeter," she said. "You'll regret being hostile." Then she stormed off. I figured that was the end of it, some HOA busybody getting lost on her way to the bake sale. But the next morning there were new signs nailed to our trees, unauthorized dwellings subject to immediate removal. Marcy just shook her head, said these folks thought they were extras in Yellowstone. I called the sheriff, he confirmed it. No HOA jurisdiction anywhere near us. Document everything he said, stay calm. Later that day, a white SUV crept past and reversed out fast when I walked out with my coffee mug. Sure enough, it was Karen riding shotgun on the phone, glaring at me like she was plotting a hostile takeover. That night we checked the locks, but nothing could have prepared us for what happened next. 10 o'clock, that pounding on the door. Karen with her fake security waving folders and fake badges declaring we were illegally occupying Ridge Pines territory. The taller one stepped forward, all tough guy routine. "Step aside, sir. This is an authorized inspection." That's when Marcy slid into view, flashed her badge, and told them all they were 5 seconds from federal charges. The short one looked like he wanted to cry. Karen screeched about harassment, but Marcy didn't move. Impersonating law enforcement, trespassing, threatening a federal officer. "Are you sure you want to keep going?" The security guards retreated, dragging Karen off the porch as she shouted threats over her shoulder. Marcy whispered. "She'll be back." And she was right, because Karen wasn't just entitled, she was dangerous. She wanted a war of control, but what she didn't know was that we were just getting started. The next morning, I found their fake HOA website, hastily thrown together, only registered 2 months ago, but claiming authority over 70 properties and featuring those same security goons. The map they published was pure fiction, a big red line drawn around private parcels they'd never owned, claiming it was all part of Phase 3 expansion. To a newcomer, it'd look official. In reality, it was a con. I printed every fake map, every bylaw, every page I could find, and Marcy started lining up her contacts. Sheriff's Office, Department of Justice, even an old friend specializing in land fraud. She said this kind of thing was popping up all over HOAs, weaponized to scam people out of land, especially in remote places. By the afternoon, we'd replaced the vandalized trail signs with big legal notices, added more cameras, and Marcy began building a timeline. Every threat, every phony document, every security inspection. What seemed like scattered annoyances were actually targeted harassment intended to force us off our land. Then the next move, mid-afternoon, a tow truck rumbled up the trail, Karen's white SUV following. She hopped out smug as ever. "Your structure is unauthorized, and we're here to remove it," she barked. I blocked the tow truck, told the driver he'd be liable for trespass. Marcy flashed her badge again. That did it. The driver bailed. Karen started screaming legal threats, but Marcy had already called the county, who confirmed her maps were fake. Karen's face turned redder than a sunburned tomato. And as evening fell, Marcy built the official complaint. Trespassing, impersonating officers, fake legal notices, forged documents, attempted property seizure. She had photos, video, and even records from other cabin owners who'd seen Karen's crew roaming at night. The real kicker: one of Karen's guards was a disgraced ex-mall cop from New Mexico, fired for harassment. She wasn't just hungry for power, she was building her own little army. Still, Karen wasn't done. Next, we found our gate forced open, new notices tacked to the trees, fake zoning warnings, forged signatures from made-up community enforcement directors. It was almost funny if it weren't so creepy. The cameras caught Karen herself sneaking through the woods at 3 a.m, hammering up signs with one of her fake guards. Marcy grinned. "We've got her now: trespass, criminal mischief, attempted forced entry impersonation. One more move and she's toast." But Karen had one last trick. 2 mornings later, our power was out, cameras, sensors, everything. Someone had cut the wire from our solar battery and ripped down the security cam. But the camera had an internal memory, and it caught her face full on as she snipped the wire flashlight in her mouth, thinking she was some kind of ninja. That was it. Marcy sent the footage off to her DOJ contact, County Code Enforcement, and the sheriff. Within hours, the feds called back advising us to keep our distance locked down and let the system work. But Karen, she doubled down, returned with a crowd from her fake HOA chanting, "Squatters, not welcome, just off our property line." Marcy and I stood on the porch holding up county maps and a giant sign reading, "This is not HOA property. Keep screaming." The crowd started to waver as Marcy calmly explained, "Every incident has been documented and turned over to federal investigators." Karen's followers started peeling away. One even asked Marcy if she was really with the marshals. When Marcy nodded, the crowd scattered. Karen was left shouting into the trees, powerless at last. But we weren't finished. Marcy gathered our evidence: 40 pages of documents, video stills, background checks on Karen's henchmen, and we marched straight into Karen's precious HOA meeting at the firehouse. Marcy stepped to the front, showed her badge, and calmly laid out the entire scam for the community: fake maps, bogus violations, illegal threats. People started whispering, then shouting. One man admitted he'd paid thousands in phony fees. And then Karen's own fake security guy stood up, confessed to being paid under the table, no license, no paperwork. That was the final straw. The crowd erupted. Zoning officers tipped off by Marcy cited Karen on the spot for multiple violations. Walking out, we saw Karen alone in the parking lot arguing on her phone, no clipboard shield left. Marcy just smiled and said, "She's done. The feds are watching now and the county will audit everything." I asked, "You think she'll try anything else?" Marcy finally laughed. "Only if she wants to end up on a federal watch list." So yeah, that happened. Some people crave control so badly, they'll invent rules, fake armies, even redraw the map to take what's not theirs. But in the end, the truth has a way of burning through all that nonsense. You'd be surprised how fast the mighty fall once someone stands up to them with the facts, the law, and a little bit of guts. Now, I gotta ask, if you were in my boots, would you have stood your ground or packed up and run? Drop a comment and let's hear where you stand on community justice, property rights, and fighting back when power gets out of hand. Because trust me, in the mountains or the suburbs, there's always a Karen waiting to test your limits.